Hello, welcome back. This is part 5 of my experimental platform tutorial. We're going to add in today some enemy movement, some enemy AI. We're going to get an enemy patrol along a platform, and if he sees us, he's going to shoot at us, and then if he can't see us, he's going to go back to just patrolling as he was before, which is pretty cool. Once we've made one, we can just plop him in the game wherever we want to, and then we've got enemies that will attack us. So let's get started. The first thing we need to do is create the enemy. So double click anywhere on the layout, go to sprite, click in the layout. I'll put it on the fade layer again. I'm always doing that. I need to change that. Change the width and the height to 16 by 16. Click OK. Let's zoom in slightly. Now we're going to animate this enemy. We're going to make him a little bit funkier. So let's draw a square. Don't go all the way out to the edge. Come in 1, 2, 3, 4, or 1, 2, 3, 4. We'll draw him there. I've got that the wrong way around. Let's make that red. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, I've got my border thickness to 2. Oh, it would help if I was organised, wouldn't it? Put the border thickness back to 1 if you haven't already. And then there we go. The reason I don't want to fill up all of the space around him is because I want to squash and stretch the sprite as he moves to give him a little bit more form and make him look a little bit like he's a bit more alive. So get a darker shade of the red color, just highlight the bottom there, just to give him a bit of shade. Let's go a little bit lighter. We'll highlight the top, just there. Go back to black. Let's give him an eye. That looks pretty good to me for sprite number 1. Or actually, let's clip the corners slightly. Just a couple in on either side. Give him a little bit of a rounded top. I don't like the eye being so close to the top of the head either, so yeah, that looks good to me. Right click on the frame, duplicate. Now we're going to stretch him. We're going to stretch him up. So come past the eye, bring it in by 1. Get the other side, bring it in by 1. And now because we brought it in 1 on each side, that gives us 2 that we can move him up. You always want to keep it the same mass. You don't want to overstretch it by more than you bring it in, otherwise it's not going to look right when it animates. It always has to be the same size. So if you come in by 2, you go up by 2. That's your limitation. So now he stretches up as he moves. Now let's go back, get the first frame, duplicate, because that's going to be the next frame after. He's going to come back down, and then we're going to duplicate that again, and now we're going to squash him. So now we want to grab just past the eye, drag him out by 1, come here at the other side, drag him out by 1, and now come under the eye, and we can bring him down by 2, because we've got 2 to play with. Get the black outline, just fill that in at the top and the bottom. Get the red, fill that in. Get the shade, fill that in. Get the highlight, fill that in. And now when we click on animation, if we click loop, we should see him squeezing, squashing, stretching as he moves. Could probably make him a little bit faster. Make that 8. That's probably a bit too fast. Let's make it 6. Yeah, that looks fine to me. Close that down. Remember, I put him on the fade layer. Select, click on the sprite itself, and then you can go and change the layer. Let's put him back on 0. Hide and lock that, and then just click on layer 0, so all future sprites will be on that layer. I've set the origin point in the middle. I'm going to change the name, SPR_enemy1, and I'm going to double click him again. I want to change the origin point. I need to make it consistent, so we're going to just go bottom middle on every single frame. Now we're going to drag him, put him down next to the player so we can have a look at him in action. And there he is. Nice tiny little bobby up and downy sprite, and we just died because the timer ran out and we respawned. That's great. Now he can move along the levels and he will move along the platforms, and if he sees us, we're going to make him shoot. So the first thing we need to do is get this guy moving. So the way we do that is give him a behavior, add a new behavior, and we're going to give him the platform behavior. Same thing we did with the player, but we're going to disable the default controls. We're going to set his maximum speed to 40 because we don't want him to be fast. And now we've got him a platform behavior, we can get him moving. Now what I'm going to do with this enemy is I'm going to create a brand new event sheet, and I'm going to put all my enemy script in there, and then I'm going to include that script in the main event sheet. So if you come over here to the project tab, right click on event sheet, add event sheet, and I'm going to call this enemies underscore E for events, and I'm going to put all my enemy code in here, go back to event sheet number 1, right click, and I'm going to include that event sheet in this event sheet. So everything we put in here is going to show up and is going to be readily available to be called when we run this event sheet. So the first thing we need to do is get this guy moving. So let's go system, every tick, and then we need to set some conditions. But before we set those conditions, I forgot, we need to go back and we need to give this enemy an instance variable. At the moment the system has no idea whether he's facing left or right, so let's put in a variable that will track that. So the name of the variable is going to be direction. It's going to be a string. You can leave the initial value, in fact put the initial value in as left, because he's facing left, so he should just go left to start with. So his initial value is going to be left. Now on the event sheet under every tick, we need to let the system know that if he's facing left, he should move left, and if he's facing right, he should move right. So highlight the whole event sheet, hit B for a blank sub event, double click, go into the enemy sprite, and then go down here, and we want to compare the instance variable, and we want to compare the direction because that's the only one we have on him, and if it's equal to left, which it is, then we want him to move left. So we're going to go into the action, we're going to go on sprite. Because we've given him the platform behavior, we now have this section here so we can simulate the control. Same way we did with the character, we're pushing down one of the keys and we're going to simulate the control. Every moment of the game we're going to move him left if he's facing left, so now when we play it he should just walk straight towards us and fall off the edge, which he does, and he animates nicely as well, and then off he goes down into oblivion, and then we blow up because the time ran out. Now we need to stop him from falling off the edge, and to do that we're going to create some collision sprites. So the same way we've got this bottom one down here which detects when we fall off the level, we're going to right click, we're going to clone it, and we're going to pop it down there. I'm going to shrink it down and pop it up maybe just by 2 there. Let's rename it. It's not going to be collision death 2, it's going to be collision wall. We're going to pop one there. I'm going to hold down command or control on a PC, and I'm going to drag out a copy and pop one there. So this is his kind of perimeter that he will patrol in. And now I'm going to go back to the enemies tab, and I'm going to say add an event, and I'm going to say enemy 1 on collision with another object, and I'm going to choose the collision wall. I'm going to drag this one up above the I'm going to drag the every tick down. I'm going to put this one at the top. I'm going to say enemy 1 on collision with the wall, and now what we need to do here is we need to check to see if he's facing left. So we need to add a condition. So if you click in here, not on the arrow, just on the sprite enemy 1, and push C on the keyboard, you can add a condition. So the condition is going to be when he collides with that, if he's facing left. So we're going to compare the instance variable direction. We're going to say if he's facing left, then what we want him to do is we want the direction to change to right. So we're going to go on to the action, and we're going to say sprite enemy 1, and we're going to set the value of the direction to right. So if he collides with that wall and his direction variable is left, set it to right. Then we can click on the whole thing here and push X. No, that's not going to work. It's because that needs to be a blank sub event. click on the whole thing, so I push B, get a blank sub event, drag this down, instead of making it a condition, the same thing we did with every tick. When he collides with a wall, blank sub event, if he's facing left, set him right, then click on the blank sub event and push X, which will give us an else statement. And the else statement basically says, if it's not that, do this. So if he's not facing left, we want him to face left. So that takes care of that. That's going to be, that'll just run over and over, and it'll just continually check. When he bumps into it, if he's facing left, set him right. Otherwise, face him left. And then every moment of the game, every tick, every frame, if he's facing left, go left. Copy the whole thing, paste it down. If he's facing right, then, you guessed it, go right. Now that should work. That should just loop around and around and around. If we go back to layout 1, he's going to go forwards. He should bump in. Yep, he turns around. He goes back. Yeah, we can't see the walls because we've set them not visible. Let's just set them visible just so we can see while we're programming it in. Bring that one in slightly. Yeah. So he bumps into the wall. The only thing that's happening is he's not turning around when he faces the other way. So we can fix that quite easily. If we go back into the enemy's event sheet, if he's facing left, then add an action, enemy sprite. We're going to go to the set mirrored action, and if he's facing left, because we've drawn him in with his eyes on the left, he's not going to be mirrored. But when he turns the other way, we can simply just flip him around, because he's not a hugely complicated character. If you flip him around, it's not really going to make any difference. You could just go into the animations and draw them in different directions and just set the animation to play at different times. But for a character this simple, we could just use the mirrored function. So when he turns around, now he faces the other way. And that's it, nice and easy. Now what we need to do is we need to get him looking for us. So when he sees us, we want him to stop and we want him to shoot bullets in our direction, which can then kill us. So on the enemy's event sheet, we're going to use a group. Click on the click G on the keyboard, which will open up the group, or you can right click. I want to change this group just to movement. And what I want to do is I want to drag the every tick condition and all of the sub events, and I want to drag it into the movement folder. Because what I want to do when he sees us, I want to disable this group so he stops moving and starts shooting. I don't want him to be moving and shooting at the same time. Close that one down. So now, go back to layout 1, we need to give this guy the ability to see us. So click on him, add a new behavior, we're going to give him line of sight. You've got perimeters down under line of sight here, you've got objects, solids, or custom, so you can actually kind of script in exactly what you want him to look for. But for us now, we're just going to say solids. The range is set massively to 10,000. I'm just going to change that to 200. That's 200 pixels in every direction. The cone of view is 360. What I want, that's the direction he's looking in. 360 means he'll just see in all directions, which is exactly what we want. I want him to just be able to, anytime we get within a certain range of this guy, I want him to stop and I want him to start shooting. Also, because these levels here are solids, if we jump on top of that, it's going to block the line of sight, which means we can effectively hide from the character. Right, so we've given him line of sight. We've set the properties in the properties panel to 200 range, 360 cone of view. Now we need to give him a bullet to shoot. So double click. Let's add a new sprite. Click anywhere. I want to bring the size of this down to 4 by 4 because bullets aren't that big. Let's zoom right in. Because the character is red, it just stands to reason. Let's just make the bullet red. And we'll give the bullet a black outline. I just like black outlines on my sprites. That's just my style. Or actually, I want to just do one thing. It may seem tiny, well, small and insignificant, but I want to do one thing. Double click in the sprite. I just want to take the corners off. I want it to be a round bullet. Okay, there's our bullet. Let's drag it outside of the layout and give it a behavior. So over here on the left, add a new behavior. We're going to give it the bullet behavior. Seems simple enough. Bullet speed, I'm going to change that to 150, and I'm going to leave everything else exactly as it is. Now we need to go back to the enemy event sheet and we need to code in shooting. So let's hit another group and I'm going to type shooting just so everything's nice and organized. And then in the event sheet for shooting, I am going to say enemy 1. And then when we go down, we've got this whole line of sight section. I'm going to say has line of sight to object. So when you can see an object, and that object is going to be us, the player. So when you can see the player, leave image point 0, that's fine. When you can see the player, the first thing I want to do is disable this group, this movement. I don't want him to move anymore, so I need to take that away. So go into the action, add the action, go into system, just start typing in group, set group active, and the group is going to be movement, and I'm going to deactivate that group. So when he can see us, I want him to stop moving. Copy this whole line here. So click in this section, Control C, Control V. Just click inside this one little section here, this event, if the enemy has line of sight, and push I. So if he doesn't have line of sight, that just inverts the statement. So if he doesn't have line of sight, double click and set the group active. So now when he sees us, let's have a look, he's going to stop, but when he can't see us, he's going to go back to patrolling, and look how cool that looks. He can see us, so 200 pixels, quite far actually, but we just destroyed ourselves. There. Drop back into sight, and he stops. We could probably drop that range down from 200, probably to 100. That's 100 pixels. Let's see now if he can see us when we start. No, see, so now if we drop out of view here, drop over here. Oh, I need a longer timer. Yeah, he can see us there, but he can't see us there, but he can there. Yeah, I think 100 pixels is probably about the right way to go. So now when he sees us, he's going to stop, and now I want him to start shooting. So let's go back into the event sheet. So let's just drag that one above because we're going to work on this bottom one a little bit more. So when he can see us, we're going to set the group to deactivated. Now, next thing we're going to do is click on the enemy, and we're going to get him to spawn another object. Again, spawn the bullet, which I got a feeling I didn't change the name of, so it's just sprite 2. On layer 0 is fine, image point 0 is fine. We're going to spawn that bullet. Now, we need to tell the bullet where to go once we've spawned it. It's just going to spawn on, just shoot off in the direction that it's set to go. So the next action we need to do is go sprite 2, which I need to change to bullet, and we're going to set the angle of that bullet. And the angle in degrees, we're going to use a built-in function called angle. So type angle and then open brackets, and then you've got 4 coordinates that you need to give it. You've got x1, y1, x2, and y2. And what we need to put in here is self.x, which is the x coordinate of the bullet, and self.y, which is the y coordinate of the bullet. And then where we need to send it is spr underscore player. So the player's x position, and spr underscore player dot y, and the player's y position. So now it's going to spawn, it's going to set the angle of direction from the bullet itself, where it is, which is right in the middle of the enemy, straight towards the player, and it's going to fire it off in that direction. Now, one thing's going to happen if I play it, which you'll see, which isn't right, is it's going to spawn unlimited amounts of bullets all the time. It's because it's continually doing it every time we're in line of sight, which is what we don't want. We want there to be a bit of a cooldown on each bullet. So the way we do that, or the way I like to do it, there's a few ways you can do it. I like to give the enemy itself another instance variable, and we're going to give it a boolean, which is a yes/no statement, and we're going to basically give it a can shoot. Obviously when we start, he can shoot because he's not going to be able to see us, but we're going to play around with that boolean in a second in the event sheet. So now, when he has line of sight to us, I want to add a condition. So just click in here, not on there, just in there, push C, go to the enemy, and I want to check the boolean is set. So I want to see if he's got line of sight and he can shoot. And don't forget, we set the default can shoot to be yes, so he's going to be able to. So if he's got line of sight and he can shoot, then we disable the movement and we spawn the bullet, and we set the bullet to go to the player. Once we've done that, I want to go system, and I want to wait 0.5 seconds, so half a second. Then I want to go sprite enemy player, and I want to set boolean. Set boolean to false on can shoot. This is what we should put in at the beginning, so I missed that bit out. When he can shoot, if he's got line of sight, immediately set it to false. Then we're going to disable the movement. Then we're going to spawn the bullet. Then we're going to set the bullet to shoot off towards the player. Wait half a second, and then once we've done all of that, we can set the can shoot back to true. So hopefully that makes sense. We can only shoot if the boolean is set to can shoot true. Immediately when you shoot, we set it to false, which means that it can't shoot continuously until this block of code is finished, and we've set it back to true, and there's a 0.5 second delay. So this is basically the cooldown on the bullet. So if you set that to 4 seconds, you would only be able to shoot once every 4 seconds. So as you can see here, he's shooting every 0.5 seconds. If you change that to 4, is going to wait 4 seconds before he can shoot again. So it depends on how fast. So it's something you could play around with the different enemies. They could have different cooldowns depending on maybe the gun of the player. Again, there's so many things you could do with it. But we're going to set it to 0.5. Now, what I don't like that's happening is the bullet is spawning on the origin point here, which is, if I click on this, it's spawning at origin point 0. So what I want to do is I want to set a new origin point. But what I think for now, okay, I'm just thinking out loud. We'll do a little animation at a later date and make it look like he's kind of shooting bullets, perhaps out of his mouth. But for now, let's add a new image point number 1, and let's just pop that there, right in the front of his face. I want that to be applied to the whole animation. So now if we click on frame 1, frame 2, frame 3, oh, frame 3 is shooting out of his eyeball, we can change that to there. Let's just change that to there, there, and yeah, why not? It doesn't matter that it's in slightly different places. All it's going to do is spawn the bullet, whatever frame the animation's on, it's going to spawn it from that image point number 1. So now we go back to the enemy script. So where it says enemy 1 spawn sprite 2 on layer 0 at image point 0, we just need to change that to image point 1, and now it's going to spawn it from a different place. Let's go back. Let's change the name of this bullet because it's annoying me. SPR underscore enemy bullet, and let's test the game. He can see us, he's shooting. He can't see us, he goes back to patrolling. He can see us, he's shooting. He goes back to patrolling. The only thing we need to do now is change his direction to face us when he can see us, so it looks like he's looking at us. So if he has line of sight to player, we need to change the enemy sprite to either be mirrored or not mirrored. So what I might do here is I might create another group, add a group, and I'm going to call this one collisions. I'm going to drag all of this inside, minimize it. The only reason I'm doing that, once I get that up there, is I don't want to confuse the system with the directions that we're facing it, the directions that we're telling it to do there. I don't think it's going to be an issue, but we'll see what happens. So if he has line of sight the player, sorry, let's create a blank sub event. So if all of this is true, if he can shoot, he's going to shoot. We'll create a blank sub event because we need to ask a couple of questions. We need to ask and check if the enemy is facing left. So we can just go ahead and copy this actually. Hold down Control or Command and just drag it down underneath. Make sure it's tabbed in. You can see there that it's tabbed in, so it's part of this event. If it's just in line, it's its own separate event, which means it won't work. So make sure that if we have line of sight and we can shoot, we're going to shoot, but also we're going to check this. We're going to check if he's facing left. In fact, if he's facing, how are we going to do this? Let me have a think. We need to flip him around. We need to compare. No, we need to compare the angle. So we don't actually need to do that. So we can delete. In fact, ignore me completely. I'm being stupid. Set a new blank sub event. We're going to compare the position of the enemy. So sprite enemy number 1, and we're going to compare his X position. So scroll on down, we're going to compare X, which is the horizontal position of the enemy. So we're going to say that if the X position, so where he is along the platform, if it's less than or equal to the X coordinate of SPR underscore player dot X, so if he's more left than the player, then we need to flip him round so he faces right. So we just go add action, enemy sprite, set him mirrored, copy this whole thing, paste it, and then if it's greater than the player's X position, we don't need to do equal because we've got that on this first one. If he's greater than, so if he's further right than the player, then let's just set him not mirrored. Let's see what happens. Yep, so we kind of turned around there, you could see it's probably a few little bugs in it. Let's just copy this, and then we're just going to, instead of disabling movement, let's disable collisions as well, and then obviously we need to reactivate that if he doesn't, because otherwise he's just going to fall off the side of the platform. Yeah, so he turns around and he shoots us. Yeah, I think that works pretty good. He turns and shoots. He continues to go back. Yeah, the only thing is, because there's a 0.5 second delay, is a 0.5 second delay in him turning around. Yeah, but I mean, we can iron that out later. That's not a big issue. Functionality works great. The only thing we need to do now before we finish is we need to make sure the bullet destroys the player when it hits the player. We may give the player some life. We probably will give him some hearts, but for now we can just we can make sure that that bullet destroys the player. But we're not going to do it in enemies because we've already got up a player death group over on event sheet number 1. So back to event sheet number 1 on player death. If the player collides with this, he's going to die. Copy the whole thing, paste it in, but instead of colliding with the death sprite or the collision death sprite, we're going to have it collide with the bullet. So there it is. Player 1 on collision with bullet, set game defaults, call player death. See how easy it is just to call that function back. Don't need to do any more than that. Now, there we go. Did we get shot? We got shot and we blow up. Fun. Great. I'm going to leave it right there, guys. We'll do some more in the next one. But now we've got an enemy on the screen. We'll probably need to extend the time limit so we don't die after 5 seconds. But we'll do that in the next video. Thanks for sticking around. If you've been coming back every time, this platform game is going to be really good by the time we finished it. So I'll see you in the next one.